Almost any girl I know, at least at one point in our relationship, has expressed a desire for a boyfriend. But strangely enough, she almost always ends up taking it back a few days later. Now, this isn't uncommon with girls, as there always seem to be specific times when a girl wants a boyfriend, like those moments after parties, or to beat the Sunday scaries. And this conversation has really only seemed to grow louder in my life, so naturally it raises a question. Do I even want a boyfriend? On one hand, the possibility of being loved in a way that can only be experienced between two teenagers, or more casually coined as puppy love, is tempting. Some days, I think I want my Peter Kavinsky. Date nights, roses, the whole 9 yards. But quickly after those thoughts follow, there's one that daunts me to this day. What if I become boring? Funnily enough, above all other issues I may have with the prospect of a man central in my life, this is the one I took biggest issue with. What obviously escalated this conversation was the recent publication of the Vogue article entitled, "Is Having a Boyfriend Embarrassing Now?" written by Shantae Joseph, released in late October 2025. This notion of a boyfriend being embarrassing, I think, shocked the public for so many different reasons. First, for so long, a boyfriend was seen as the ultimate achievement in the perfect life for a teenage girl. Girls like Samantha Baker from 16 Candles taught us that the best thing to happen to a girl was to have our own personal Jake Ryan sat outside the church waiting for us. Forget our sister's wedding. And all of Pendergast showed us that no matter how complicated life gets, it will always be okay, as long as you have Woodchuck Todd driving you around on a lawnmower off into the sunset. Girls' obsession with teenage love has been a cultural staple across generations, so the recent release of this article kind of felt like a slap in the face to the tradition. But the real question is, was it enlightening, or was it just more propaganda from the I hate my boyfriend community? I pose a couple issues with this article. First, while obviously not its intention, I think it can shame women with boyfriends and create feelings of awkwardness within themselves. Nobody wants to be embarrassing, so taking something as common as a girl with a boyfriend and turning it into something to be embarrassed about can be destabilizing. Second, I think it feeds into this common thing that social media has created, where suddenly everything's embarrassing, and sometimes it just isn't that deep. But my main issue with the article was it wasn't even about the boyfriend himself, it was about the girlfriend. She writes about the female tendency to soft launch, heterofatalism, the belief held by the worn-down straight woman who has been repeatedly disappointed by men, specifically with their emotional unavailability and overall behavior, but who still want to be partnered. And the article rarely mentions the man himself. There are so many issues with men in modern-day dating. However, she chose to focus on the girl. Now, I'm not claiming she's some female-hating misogynist. I think the article just might have been ill-titled. So, to answer the question, is having a boyfriend embarrassing? Honestly, I don't think so. But that stems from a deeper belief that I have about embarrassment and its construction into our society, but I'll get into that later. I can understand the whole concept and what she was going for, and even just that whole man-hating attitude in general, but I really just think embarrassment is a wrong word. Corny, cheesy, restrictive, humbling, and even boring. I think all of these words could fit better instead of embarrassment. And something that goes hand in hand with this is the whole idea that cool girls don't have boyfriends. And to no one's surprise, I have an issue with this too. Because first, I just think it puts too much power in the presence of a man. In my eyes, a girl having a boyfriend could never make her uncool, simply because I don't give him that much weight in her life in the first place. Actually, what I believe to be the ultimate cool girl status is when a girl has a boyfriend and you could almost never know. When all of your conversations pass the Bechdel test with ease, and suddenly you go to follow her on Instagram, and there's a highlight with a heart with a guy you've never heard about before. Also, I apologize for the lighting. I procrastinated filming this, and it's 5 p.m., so I'm losing light. To be someone fully independent from your partner, and allow them to be a life enhancer instead of a catalyst for joy, is something that I think the coolest thing a girl can do. Which leads me to my next point, the whole thing that sparked this video, and also mentioned in the article, the common phenomenon that when a girl gets a boyfriend, she becomes boring. As some may have experienced with their friends, or even in their own personal life, that when a man enters a woman's life, she tends to shut down and become what many would consider boring. She stops going out, she stops bringing exciting new gossip to the table, and as the relationship strengthens, she begins to prioritize date night over dinner with her girls. And it's so easy to say, oh my god, I would never do that, I love my friends. And it doesn't stem from a lack of you not loving your friend enough, and the scary thing is, you really won't know until you've done it. In the article, Joseph writes, she admits that her content perhaps becomes less exciting when she's in a relationship. Being single gives you this ultimate freedom to say and do what you want. It is absolutely not every woman, but I do notice that we can become more beige and watered down online when in a relationship, myself included. Now, in the girls I surveyed while writing this, I noticed a common theme in their responses, despite the stark differences from whether or not they have or have not been consumed by a boyfriend. There's a very specific balance between the hierarchy that their friends take place in their life and when a boyfriend disrupts that. Every girl who found herself engrossed in her relationship noticed a shift in her female friendships too. However, the romantic relationship shifted too, because as their friends drifted away, they became more and more dependent on that relationship, and by the time it ended, they looked up to saw that they really had no one, and they had all been pushed away. So my conclusion for this, and the key to prevent boringness, hopefully, is to clearly state where your priorities lay with your friend, and allow your boyfriend to be a fun addition, not a necessity. Now, the first half of this video was obviously on the boyfriend and what he means for the woman, but as I was researching this and looking more into the article, I realized that this conversation is so much bigger than that. It seems like nowadays, everyone is caught in a loop of perpetual embarrassment. It seems like you can no longer exist without someone else, or even yourself, catching yourself in an awkward moment. And as someone who's accepted my position in teenage society as a weird girl, it took me a lot of thinking to get here. In past years, I've spent most, if not all of them, perpetually worried. I was worried about how I looked. I was worried about what I was doing. I was worried about what people thought about what I was doing, and whether or not what they thought was a good or bad thing. That led to my personality being strangled, because I only allowed myself to act within the bounds of what I saw normal. Ironically, these times where I pushed a narrative onto myself that so obviously wasn't authentic are the times that I find most embarrassing. Now, clearly with the gift of hindsight, it's easy to say that I wasn't acting as myself, but if you had asked me in those moments if I thought that I was being authentic, I would have said yes. However, there was always an underlying weirdness I knew I was running from, even though I'd barely admit it to myself. With the acceptance of my weirdness, the acceptance of how others view me, and that I can't always control that, had to follow. The idea of people seeing a part of me that I had suppressed for so long was hard for me, until I realized something. The only thing embarrassing me was myself. Now, I can't pretend like the notion of confidence killing embarrassment is something that I came up with on my own, but coming to this conclusion and looking up online to see that others were feeling the exact same way was liberating, to say the least. Embarrassment is one of the most universally understood emotions. That being said, it's the most artificial. It depends less on what we do, and more what others think about what we do. But as teenagers, we can't help but care what other people think. And sometimes embarrassment just happens. Your face gets red, your palms get sweaty, you start shaking. I get it. But zooming out, embarrassment is really just a reaction to the world around us. Proving that embarrassment is learned doesn't make it any less real, I understand. But once you learn to let go of the constructions you've built around yourself, it's one of the most freeing experiences you'll ever feel. Taking responsibility of your actions, not out of guilt, but out of ownership, is the first step. Hiding from your weirdness doesn't make it any less real. It makes it shameful, as if it's something to be hidden. When you face a narrative, instead of trying to shrink it, which in turn shrinks yourself, you gain control over the situation. There's really no room for people to mock you if you're already confident in what you've done, showing that embarrassment isn't in the action, but your reaction. Social media pushes us to overperform perfection. So now, more than ever, we need to embrace our imperfection and be confident in that. Being unapologetic in who you are won't make you prone to embarrassment. That being said, it'll make it a lot easier to deal with. As humans, we deserve to take up the space we occupy, and that includes the things we unapologetically love. Because showing pride in what makes us ourselves is what I think is the truest form of self-respect. And this is what I believe Joseph meant when she said it's embarrassing to have a boyfriend, or at least in the parts that I agree with. Because she's right. If you love someone, it's your right to be as loud, obnoxious, or quiet as you would like about it. Joseph writes, "To me, it feels like the result of women wanting to straddle two worlds. One where they can receive the social benefits of having a partner, but also not appear so boyfriend-obsessed that they come across quite culturally loserish." I think the embarrassment doesn't come in the soft launch. It comes in the shy claim of a boyfriend. Now, obviously, I know some girls who just soft launch for the fun of it. And if that's you, no judgment. But that's not what this is about. If you love someone and want to share that love with the world, or even just a smaller subculture of your exes who still follow you on Instagram, say it loudly. Take pride in what you love, whether it's a person, interest, talent, hobby, or thing. Love isn't always meant to be loud, but it's meant to be appreciated. and as creatures who thrive off its benefits, our responsibility is to claim it in full. I never shut up, and I love to share my thoughts. So here was born the YouTube channel that you're watching right now. People from my school have found it outside of the group of friends that I've shared it with, and they've come up to me, maybe out of curiosity, maybe trying to embarrass me. But I realized something. If they think it's embarrassing, who cares? It's no harm to me. Yeah, I may still be weird, but whoever said that was a bad thing? Alright, if you appreciated this video, please like, comment, subscribe. I'm here every Tuesday, 4 p.m. PST. Peace out.